Today, we're going to talk about some of the questions that arise in Christianity. Questions like, why would a good God, a loving God, create evil? And why would God, who could solve all of the issues and the hurts and the pains and the illnesses and the sicknesses and the children and people born with defects, why would a God that can heal those people not heal them? Why is there sorrow in the world surrounding these things? And why would a good God, a loving God, a God that supposedly loves the people, allow these things to happen when God has the power to change them? Well, for one thing, as we get into it, people that say these things, why would God allow this and that, and why would if Jesus could heal, didn't heal these people? Why don't we receive healing now? Why would God allow sickness, death, and all of this pain and sorrow that surrounds it? Well, if you look at scriptures, God's healing is built in to the body. We naturally heal ourselves of a majority of illnesses and sicknesses. If we break a bone, the body naturally starts to heal itself. We're self-healing. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you look at that, you can see the love and the grace of God in the design of our body. For a host of illnesses and viruses and injuries, the body naturally heals itself in order for life to be sustained. In the most extreme circumstances, the loss of limb and the loss of so much blood, the body does not have the capacity to heal itself. And we will see that it's a reason for that. If we look at some autoimmune diseases and conditions where the immune system begins to attack its own tissues and its own bodies. It recognizes the organs, certain organs and tissues and other areas of the body as being diseases and attacks them. Now, these defense systems, the immune system of the body, is one of the critical areas of the body that promotes healing. We have these soldiers, we have this army of defenses, and that are ready to attack any impurities and viruses and diseases that come into the body. However, when they run amok, as is evident with these autoimmune conditions, then the healing properties that are designed into the body become detrimental to the body. So you can see from these conditions, it is possible that You can have something that is too good for the condition. And some people will say, well, I want a super high-powered immune system, to protect me from anything that can possibly be created, any virus, any disease. I would want that. But then when you say that you want that, how is that immune system, that attribute of the body, how is it going to affect the other components of the body? Is it going to fit with what you already have, with your 2 arms, your 2 legs? What if to have that high-powered immune system that protects you from all diseases and you heal instantly or in little time, it requires that you have a tail or 3 legs or other unthought of additions to your body in order to support this immune system. When God created man and men and women, he said it was good. It was a good fit. Everything that I designed in man, in their structure, it is good for our habitat, for the earth, and for our position to have dominion in the earth. All that we have was good. It was balanced. We had just enough healing, self-healing within our body to enjoy life on this earth. Now, before we go too deep into the realm of the experimental and the theoretical, let's look at some biblical scriptures, such as the illnesses that Job experienced, the boils, and the pain that he experienced. We can look at when the Israelites were plagued by the fiery serpents, and many were falling sick and dying. And Moses was told to fashion a bronze serpent and place it on a pole and hold it up, and when the people would look at it, they would be healed. And let's look at the 10 lepers that Jesus healed, and all of the many ways and methods that Jesus used to heal individuals during his ministry time on earth. He would speak the word. He would touch individuals. The woman with the issue of blood pressed through the crowd to touch the hem of Jesus' garment, and power went out from him, and she was healed. So there is a spiritual component to sickness, to healing, and to our bodies. This spiritual component, to many people, is still a mystery. We understand a part of it through the gospel and through the scriptures. But even the Apostle Paul said, we see through a glass darkly. We only know in part the spiritual components of our body, the connections that we have to the spiritual realm, in addition to the physical aspects of our body. Scientists are still discovering through genetics and other testing and studies aspects of the body and the design and the creation of this physical form that we live in. they are still discovering new things about the body. One thing that is certain is that healing would come through Jesus. If you were close to Jesus, if you were able to get to Jesus and ask him for healing, when people lined the streets in the shadow of Peter, one of the apostles, passed by, and the same was the case with Jesus, people would be healed. Now, these signs and wonders of the apostolic age and of Jesus' ministry served many purposes. And one of the covenantal promises in the Old Testament was that God would not place the diseases of the Egyptians upon the people that were called by his name. So here we see a divine protection, a spiritual protection from physical diseases and sicknesses. Nevertheless, the divine covenant had a behavioral component to it. The people were to obey the law. And as long as they obeyed the law, they would receive this divine protection. And when we look at the covenant that the people had entered into under the Old Testament, we can better understand these covenants today when we look at the many contracts and covenants that people enter into in business, in real estate. When you rent or purchase or lease a car, you enter into a covenant. You promise to pay, and you also promise not to damage, to carry insurance, and many other things in return for receiving a vehicle. Now, when you stop making your payments, or if you do not put a certain level of insurance coverage on your vehicle, stipulations that are outlined in the contract, then the true owner of the vehicle can charge you a penalty or even come and repossess the car. Now, covenants and contracts are not one-sided. There should always be a mutually beneficial component in any contract or covenant, or rather any good contract or covenant. So while we get manifold benefits from entering into covenant and a contractual relationship with God, we must look at what do we offer and what could we offer to God. What does God get out of the deal? We come to God with our problems, with our issues, with the full expectation that God is able to solve our problems. And what do we give God? What does God receive from us? It's kind of like that tie that we give our father on Father's Day. Children often, when Father's Day comes up, when they are reminded that Father's Day is coming up, they take the money that they receive in their allowance, the money that their father gave them, and they go to the store and they purchase an item. Often it may be a tie or some socks or some other trinket to show their appreciation and their love for their father. And if we look at this situation, as I said, the children, they take the money that they have received in their allowance. They're using the father's resources to purchase the father a gift. What a wonderful situation. We all are children or creatures of the Creator. And any resources or monetary finances that we may have, they also were created by the Creator. So God receives, if anything at all, from his children, just like a father on Father's Day, items and things that, in all respects, can be created absent of the children. If the father wanted a tie, he has the money. It was his money that the children used to purchase a gift. The breath that we breathe, the lungs that we have, the vocal cords that we use to praise God, to pray to God, they were all created by God. So, what does God really receive? It seems futile that we give gifts, and we call them gifts, to our Father. When you spend, his money, well, it was my money that you spent. It's kind of an oxymoron to say that we give gifts to God. What can a creature give to the Creator? The very life that we have was given to us. So some would say, well, it's the thought that counts. And I think that is one of the central issues. It's the thought that counts. When we meditate on these things, on our creatureliness and our Creator and our position within that relationship, we see our utter worthlessness and the awesomeness of our God, our Creator. Men and women have been created with abilities and intellect. And we also have, as we started talking about, self-healing. When we injure ourselves, when we make a mistake, we slip and fall, our body begins to heal itself. So we see the grace and the wisdom and the healing of our body. God has already foreknew that we would injure ourselves, and a certain level of healing is already built in. God designed a certain level of self-repair into the bodies that were given to us. Now, while we may take these things for granted, that when we skin our knee or we cut ourselves or injure ourselves, break a bone or other injury, that the body begins to heal itself. When we make a mistake and when others make a mistake around us, there's a certain level of healing that is inherent in our bodies. And we also have to look at the truth that this was a design feature of our bodies. Now, while we're not thinking of God and we're living our lives and running here and there and to and fro, and we happen to injure ourselves or others who are not thinking of God, God is the furthest thing from their mind, and they injure themselves or injure others. God has already thought of us, or thought enough of us, to design this feature in our bodies, to have healing, to have enough grace to cover our mistakes and the mistakes of others. Now, while we may take these things for granted, the small things, the healing of a cut or a bruise, and our flesh returns to normal, and we may have a scar, a reminder, but in all respects we heal from sprains and strains and from broken limbs. These small things, as we would say today, we often give them no mind. We don't look at the care and the love and the wisdom that went into the design of our bodies. This gift that we had been given from our God and our Creator. Do we really think that we're entitled to these things, to this healing? Do we deserve it? Or can we just agree that it is good and righteous that we have this feature built into our bodies? The Bible says when God looked over all of the things that were created, He said it was good, very good. Now, the questions that I posed, or that people pose, about why would a God allow such things and illnesses and sicknesses, and if God was good and if God could heal, why would God allow these things? These questions and meditations on the world can only be answered if an individual acknowledges that God exists, that God is the creator. Because when an individual holds on to the era of evolution and the Big Bang, or Eastern doctrines and philosophies of energy, positive and negative forces, or male and female energy as the origin of humanity, then true healing, knowledge, and righteousness will elude these individuals. In an evolutionary worldview, it is the survival of the fittest. The strong survive. In organisms, interactions with its environment cause changes, and therefore, the most an individual could hope for would be in to help themselves to the happenstance of the environment. The very creation of the universe occurred because elements and energy that was floating around came together in such a way to cause a big bang. So life as we know it was just a accident or happenstance. The gospel message of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords coming entering into humanity to save by dying and humbling himself on the cross and suffering runs contrary to anyone that holds on to an evolutionary theory where the strong survive. It is by strength that we overcome, not by humbling ourselves and submitting to a higher purpose. Under evolutionary theory, where the strong survive and natural selection is the standard of righteousness, the good news of Jesus Christ suffering and dying on the cross seems as foolishness. It seems wholly unwise. It goes against the survival of the fittest mindset because he didn't survive. If we go into other Eastern philosophies and doctrines associated with positive and negative energy and male and female energy, we will adopt the same thoughts that were stated in the Bible. He had the power to save others, but he couldn't save himself. When an individual thinks along these lines, that it is power, it is positive and negative energy, male or female energy, that is the end all and be all of existence, they also stumble at the cross. Love and grace and honor and care do not exist in these worldviews. It's all about power. Manifesting power becomes the end all and be all of a person's existence. And while Jesus was able to heal and save others, he didn't have the power to save himself. The Romans had an authority that superseded his. And the deceiving priests of that day devised a power that overcame his, or so it seemed. As we see, truth doesn't exist in this worldview. It's only power. And power has no categories. If I can deceive, if I can lie to get what I want, then I've exerted power in a positive fashion. If I can use politics to get out of making a hard decision, such as condemning an innocent man, then I used power wisely. There is no right or wrong. There is only dominance. And if the methods I use prove to dominate others, then I must be right. I have the power. All of these popular worldviews, evolution, energy, and other doctrines, whatever form they come in, remove God from a person's thinking. Or they create other gods that associate themselves with the power or whatever passion an individual wants to exert. These worldviews and mindsets that individuals have move them further and further away from God, the true and living God, our Creator. And as these individuals' thinking becomes darkened and they move further away from God, they also move further away from their healing, from their salvation, from the source of their life. And while these individuals may want good things, they shall not receive them. We often see examples of this with the rich and famous, having everything that an individual could want, but going to drugs and suicide to get through the problems of their life. What can an individual do if they gain the world yet lose their soul? They lose that bind, that tether that holds them to their Creator. When those ties are severed, an individual becomes like a balloon floating in the wind, tossed to and fro by the elemental forces, principalities, and powers of this world. Countless individuals have traveled down this road to depravity and darkness, and many individuals today are running headlong into destruction because they have no consideration for God and the blessings and grace that is evident to all in creation. And that is the key. We have to realize that we are a creation. And being a creation, we have to have a creator. Once we have a God-centered perspective and remove ourselves from the throne, then we can start to see the beauty of life, the beauty and wisdom of our Creator, who designed our bodies in this world to be good. And if the world that we live in is inherently good, then the Creator of this world and of us must also be better than we could possibly imagine.